Hello, I'd like to speak with you today in regards to cognitive distortions and stress. This information is coming from verywellmind.com, written by Elizabeth Scott and reviewed by Rachel Goldman. So, when you're thinking about situations, experiences in your life, it's quite possible that your mind can kind of play tricks on you that can distort your view. So cognitive distortions are where your mind puts a spin on an event you see that you have experienced and attaches a not so objective interpretation of the experience. So uh, when you know what to kind of look out for with cognitive distortions, we all have them, we all experience them. We are simply which are simply like tendency or patterns of thinking or believing, that they are especially common in people with mood disorders, for example. So it may be a little more challenging to spot on your own, but it is possible. Doing so usually brings lasting positive change in a way that you experience stressors in your life. So an interesting thing about cognitive distortions, they can work to your advantage at times. The key is to know when and how to do so. So these are some most common recognized cognitive distortions. It's not all, but these are the most common. So you can kind of gently notice them, identify them, and you'll be able to, in your own way, kind of reduce the reactivity to the stress in your life. So, for example, there's all of nothing thinking. This type of distortion is the culprit of when people kind of think in extremes. Either it's all or it's kind of like not at all. There really isn't much room for a middle ground. So words like always and never, describing things like, I'm always the one stuck with this. That type of thinking can magnify the stressors in your life and make them seem larger than they may possibly be. There's also overgeneralization. Those prone to overgeneralizations tend to take isolated events and assume that all future events will be the same. There's also mental filter. Those who tend to toward mental filtering may gloss over the positive events and may hold on and magnify to a negative experience. So there can be 20 things that are right, but that one thing that did not go the way that you expected to, your mental filter may only notice that one thing that goes wrong. So disqualifying the positive, that's when, similarly to like mental filtering, those who disqualify the positive and tend to treat the positive event like flukes, thereby clinging to a narrative worldview or perspective and set low expectations for the future. That's for the person that says, yeah, but X, Y, and Z. There's also jumping to conclusions. People who do this quite often, rather than letting the evidence bring them to a logical conclusion, they set sights on a conclusion, often negative, and then they look for evidence to back it up, ignoring the evidence on the contrary. So conclusion jumpers can often fall prey to feeling like they're mind reading, where they believe that they know the true intentions of others without talking with them. Another example is magnifying and minimizing. That's also similar to mental filtering and disqualifying the positive. The cognitive distortion involves placing a strong emphasis on negative events and downplaying the positive ones. There's also emotional reasoning. For this one, it's close relative to jumping to conclusions in that it involves ignoring certain facts when drawing conclusions. So emotional reasoners would consider their emotions about situations as evidence rather than objectively looking at the facts. Acting on these beliefs can understandably contribute to more concerns, problems than resolutions. Should statements. The should statements tend to have rigid rules set by themselves or that always need to be followed. at least in their minds. The person that use should statements may not see the flexibility in different circumstances, and they put themselves under considerably stress or stressors trying to live up to those self-imposed expectations. There's also labeling and mislabeling. That's when a person kind of labels things that are often inaccurate or negative on themselves and others. Labeling cages people into roles that do not always apply and prevents the person from seeing people, including ourselves, as we really are. There's lastly personalizations. Personalizations with those stressors tend to blame themselves or others for things they have no control over, creating stress where it may not be. So personalizations and individuals that personalize may tend to blame themselves for actions of others and blame others for their own feelings. So if these things are feeling a little familiar for you, to you, I would definitely say work with a mental health provider that can assist you or support you through identifying these cognitive distortions with these added stressors and coming up with some coping skills that you all can come up with, practice, and kind of grow from. So I hope this information was of assistance for you today, and enjoy the remainder of your day.